Hi Year 6. Well, welcome to our first art lesson of this half term. We are going to be focusing this half term on painting, and we're going to be doing a project which I know will really appeal to some of you, especially Bill and Frank. The materials that you're going to need today are simply some paper, A4 paper. If you've picked up an art pack, then please use the A4 paper rather than the A3 paper at this stage. You'll need a pencil and a rubber. I've got there the words picture prompts, so if you've picked up an art pack, there will be some photocopies in there which we can use in a little while as prompts to help us with inspiration. I'll come back to that later on. So first of all, I want to say a massive well done to everybody for your hard work from last half term. It's been so strange having most of you at home and some of you in school, but you've done some really good artwork, and I particularly just want to massively applaud Lacey Arnold for this finished piece of work that she has sent to me. It says here, we should, and then the I is the word see, everyone as equals. So you can see she's used some wool to make her Kandinsky-based patterns. She has used collage to create her picture, and she's making a strong statement about equality as well. I absolutely love your picture, Lacey, and I hope you'll let me display it for a little while before you take it or keep it at home. Right, so this week we need to take inspiration from a type of art called Cubism. Now I want you to have a think. Can you remember when we looked at a Cubist artist before? Anybody remember? We saw Pablo Picasso's work at the very start of this year. It seems like ever such a long time ago, when we were doing expressive portraits. Have a think back to his Guernica picture. That is Cubism. Okay, so first of all, let's find out a little bit about Cubism. Cubism was a truly revolutionary style of modern art that was developed by Pablo Picasso and George Braque. It was the first style of abstract art, so not realistic, which evolved at the beginning of the 20th century in response to a world that was changing at unprecedented speed. Whew, that sounds a bit like now to me. Cubism was an attempt by artists to revitalise the tired traditions of Western art, which they believed had run their course. They wanted to change things up. The Cubists challenged conventional forms of representation, such as perspective. We'll think about perspective in a bit, which had been the rule since the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a movement which was in the 1400s to the early 1500s, and it was like a revival of classical forms of art and poetry and all that kind of thing, which stemmed from the Greek and Roman times, and it was like a celebration of humanity itself. But the Cubists wanted to rebel against this movement that they thought was boring, and they wanted to create their own style. Their aim was to develop a new way of seeing which reflected what they felt was the modern age. So here's Pablo Picasso. Let's have a look at some of his work and gather some ideas in your head about what you're seeing. Does this remind you of the Guernica picture at all? This particular picture is quite important. We'll come back to this one. Okay, this is George Braque. Let's have a look at some of his work. Right, what can we say about these paintings? Now, I think you might have decided that some of these paintings were distorted, just like the Guernica picture, which had distended necks and people thrown about in all kinds of uncomfortable looking positions. They don't look like comfortable portraits, do they? They don't look realistic exactly. Like we said before, they are abstract. There's lots of sort of different sections of the faces, the portraits that are cut almost with geometric lines through them, and there's different colouring in each of these elements. Now you might have noticed that it seems like the eyes don't always line up, the noses seem at funny angles, things look angular, uncomfortable and very strange. So let's have a look at a couple of words that are important. Distorted. This means twisted out of shape. Now, if you look at this picture here, we can definitely see that this looks a bit twisted out of shape, doesn't it? This lady looks a bit cross-eyed and there's something just not quite right looking about her face. If we use this word in a sentence, we could say, the strange representation of the woman was curiously distorted. It's interesting, isn't it, the way it's represented? Perspective. Now, perspective is very important in Cubism. Perspective means the way that you look at something or the viewpoint from which you see something. We talked about that, didn't we, in our art last half term, in terms of opinions. But this is more perspective in terms of how we see it and how we present it on the paper. So, in Cubism, there is a perspective. If you have a look at this lady here, you can see on the left-hand side here, you can see a face that is looking towards the right, this way, a side profile of the face. I don't know if you can see that there. And then if we look on the right-hand side here, sort of see the front-facing view. So it's like a side view and a front-facing view that are joined together, overlaid over the top of each other to form a strange 3D perspective. It is like two 2D perspectives joined together to make an unusual 3D perspective. So if we use this word in a sentence, we could say the simultaneous, that means at the same time, amalgamation of a flat front-facing perspective and a side perspective gave the portrait a strange distortion. This half term, we are going to begin by drawing an image from the front and the side view, which we will combine later to make a cubist 3D viewpoint. This is a picture from several years ago that somebody did in year 6. Beginnings of a picture from somebody else in year 6. Do portraits this year because you're not all in school and it's very hard for me to take photographs of you and sort that out. This time we're going to focus on the world around us, which opens up our options a lot. So because of this, we will use an animal or some part of nature as our starting point. Whichever creature we want to use, we need to have a front view of the creature and a side view. Now, if you have picked up an art pack from school, you will have front and side views in there as starting points that you can use. And I'm going to show you those on the screen here in case you haven't got an art pack. So that if you want to pause the video on any of these pictures, you can use them as the starting point for your observational drawing. But what we need to do today is an A4 size front-facing view of an animal or creature of our choice. Now, this could be your particular pet at home if you've got a photograph, or even you might want to draw it from life. Or you can pick any other animal you want to. I've just given you a few animals based on what people liked in previous years, but if you want to choose a different one, that's fine. So I'm going to show you the pictures now. You can choose which one you want, or you can pick a different one. But when you've chosen, you need to do a line drawing using our usual success criteria. Think about your spacing, think about guidelines to help you with that. Make sure it's enlarged to fill the page. Draw lightly so that you can rub out, and then when you're happy, you can go over and draw a bit harder. So just the front-facing view today, please. I love frogs. I know some of you are going to pick sloth. Very grumpy looking turtle. A rather amused looking shark. I'd say he looks fairly cheeky as well. This is a chicken with attitude. I put a blobfish in because everybody in any year group I've ever done this with, somebody always wants to do a blobfish. It's pretty disgusting, but you might want to do that. So like I say, pick whichever one you want and draw a linear sketch, A4 size. I'll have a go at mine.